I would say I design for play. I think a big part of childhood is you're kind of running around trying to figure out who you are, and becoming that is a playful process, and I think it's something that we, in a way, we design, and it's iterative. For me, the ultimate toy is sticks and mud and water. It's not about the parts and pieces. It's about the imagination and what those parts and pieces allow to have happen. So when a toy gives the story, the good part's done. So I'd hate to say that I design out of frustration with what exists, but I do to some extent, particularly with the gender stuff. It makes me so angry to see some of the girl versions of other toys. In that, as soon as there's a girl version of something, it implies that everything else is the boy version. So rather than seeing it as boy type of play and girl type of play, let's just help anybody become the best version of themselves. The advantage of being an independent toy company, I get to design from what I hear from teachers and from other kind of play activists, and hearing what's not working in the play opportunities that we give to children. I have some really cool examples of some of the earlier ideation with the industrial scars. Hold on. Oh, this one. They become play prompts or cues. So in some cases, they can imagine what this used to be. This used to be for something really specific, like maybe there was a machine that went through here, or some way that they went together really specifically when it was in some other structure. I love this idea of clues, and that as you either play or as you're trying to just engage with these parts and pieces through what on earth was that for? In the Rigamajig booklet, we say make, play, do. And I really like the do part of that. I think that there's an important element of do that happens when you are comfortable building or comfortable jumping in and just making something. There's a nuance between pretend and imagination, and the really hard part, and what I think takes practice, and what I think if we always give children toys that have the story built into it, we rob them of the opportunity to invent the story and make up the story themselves. The moments that I see things I wouldn't have thought of, that's when I know it's successful. When it has a life of its own. The kids are inventing things I didn't think of. I didn't design it to do that, but they made it do that. So that's woohoo, it's working. It works. It's tricky to talk about, but with identities, that it's helpful to have models, but that you don't have to pick from these options that you see. You can also make your own. All of it, I think, is about make what you can imagine and what feels right. I mentioned the kind of common or the humbleness, the everyday objects. And for me, that is really critical, because when something is designed for play and it's given to a child as this is a thing you play with, I think it's a completely different relationship to play and to the design world than when they take something and appropriate it for play. And part of what is so powerful about Anji Play is just that. And part of what I'm trying to balance as I now take these things that are appropriated for play and design them into objects that are now designed for play is maintaining some of the play values that are in that. Even larger, if I were to zoom out even further and why play as a way of learning, there's room for failure. They learn so many of the principles that they would learn in other kind of methods in the classroom, but also so many that they wouldn't, mostly the collaboration and the teamwork that happens. In this case, these two are obviously friends, but in a lot of what we see, and I've been hearing about this a lot, Rigamajig is being used in a lot of inclusive classrooms, which makes me extremely happy. And so kids who are on the autism spectrum are able to play and communicate in a way, communicating through making and communicating through kind of achieving something together. Which I'm hearing from teachers is there aren't those opportunities with smaller materials or with learning without materials, right? And I think that in play also there's a flow. So I was going to show, maybe I may have taken it out. But there's a certain flow that happens where whether or not children in the classroom or on a playground are friends or know each other, they wind up kind of needing each other in ways. It's very intentional that Rigamajig is too large for one child to do alone. And in fact, I can't really even do it alone. And I try often enough that I get kind of annoyed because I'm like, I just want to test this thing. But so that type of collaborating and what they're figuring out, and the fact that they're figuring it out rather than following instructions, is critical. And again, back to their approach to learning and their experience of what it is to learn shifts quite a bit. And a lot of the grants that we're getting from through Kaboom are related. It's 21st century. There's of course like a number. There's quite a bit of educational jargon that goes around STEM and STEAM and 21st century skills and things like that. And it's things that are learned through play that kids aren't getting anywhere else, I think so.
I have a question for you about risk-taking and gender among children. There's sort of I think a false assumption that boys are ready to take more physical risks than girls. When you put kids in a context where everybody's encouraged to take physical risks, you see some of those assumptions breaking down. And also, how long did it take for someone to tell you that walking under a ladder is bad luck?
Yeah, I still am not sure whether or not it's not bad luck. I walk around ladders for some reason, but I also jump off of them. So in my mind, again, the value of playing with things that were not designed for play is one of the easiest ways to remove gender from the play that happens with kids. And with Rig-a-ma-jig, we see boys and girls engaging in the same way. We see there have been moments in trainings with kind of parks programming people. Early on, I was a little bit more involved in the training, so I don't know if this is still happening because I'm not doing the training anymore. But we had one of the programmers when some girls walked up to the group, and the programmer said, "Oh, maybe you want to play with this." They had kind of a mock kitchen set up. And I was like, why are you doing that? No. And again, it's like that was what they gave to them, right? So here's Rig-a-ma-jig, and then they walk up, and the programmer's like, oh, you want to play with this? And so I don't think it's a kid issue. In fact, I know it's not. And so it's in the same way that, like, when a boy walked up, they didn't offer them the kitchen. I was like, well, if you're going to offer the kitchen to everybody, like, what are you doing here? So, and then in Anji Play, it's amazing how everybody's doing everything. And in longer presentations, I have a video of these girls who are. One is kind of out. It's taking her a very long time to coach herself to jump off of a plank that's, probably this high, and she has the pads. And the plank is held in to the ladder by virtue of its rungs. So nobody needs to hold it. The plank is suspended. But there's two girls holding it as the gesture of support, right? And she's not telling that. It's just a thing that they're doing to say, like, hey, we got you, but they don't need to be holding it. And so again, they're not alone in kind of gauging their risk. They're not alone in being coached through what they are capable of, or that they, you can do it. And then one more thing I wanted to add is that for me, and I talked about way to lift a bucket instead of calling it a crane. Underlying elements, I think, that are happening there when a child gets to kind of invent a thing rather than follow a known model. And in particular, when they're deciding the identity of something, I have another toy called Gmo that was, I started it when I was at Cranbrook. I have a bunch of Cranbrook people here. And its underlying goal is that when playing with it, the child would be inventing or imagining the identity of it.